Many players have called the Chaotic Alliance raids a failure, and I can see where they're coming from. One giant leap backwards in terms of encounter design, and an organizational nightmare the game is not built to withstand. In spite of this, the concept shows promise, and with refinement it could become far more enjoyable to far more people. The opinions expressed in this video are majority opinions that aren't necessarily my own. I tried my best to both sides this one, but there really isn't much good to say. I've had a lot of time to think on this, to consult with other players of all intensities and calibers, to observe the public perception, and I even put out a satisfaction survey for purposes of research, which I'll sprinkle in some responses of here and there. Most of the respondents so far considered themselves to be mid-core and were not my viewers. If you haven't taken the survey, please still consider doing so, ideally before finishing the video. Even if you haven't done the fight yourself, or even if you have no raiding experience, your insight on how you feel about this will still be valuable. I'll be revisiting the responses closer to the end of the patch. Background gameplay will be of a game that is actually good. I'll be showing some things on screen, but also reading all of the relevant information so you can entirely second monitor this one if you want. Prior to Chaotic's release, I made the incorrect prediction that Chaotic's reward structure would be well received. Now that we know what actually drops, let's talk about it. Firstly, Cloud Dark Demi Materia 1 is dropped to each update, and if you have the limited time bonus, then 8 extra will be split between random players. That means you might not even get the bonus. This can be spent on item level 730 gear, 3 Demi Materia 1 for large pieces and 2 for small pieces, or the Shroud of Darkness mount for 99 Demi Materia 1. The gear will also drop 2 coffers for different slots per alliance guaranteed, but the mount is an extremely rare drop. Similarly to EX Trials, it's likely you'll never even see the drop, let alone win it. Assuming you do win all of the gear you need from coffers, but don't win the mount and never get the bonus, you're looking at 50 clear. Basically an EX Trials reward structure, not too egregious. The second currency, Cloud Dark Demi Materia 2, is dropped 1 each update, and for every first timer in the instance, everyone gets 2 extra. By now, everyone knows the figure. If everyone's new, everyone gets 49 Demi Materia 2. But if you're the only new player, you'd only get 3 Demi Materia 2. Before we lose a shit about this, let's see what can actually be bought with these. The Dice of Darkness mount for 75 Demi Materia 2, or the half times 2 hairstyle for 49 Demi Materia 2. Both of which have a chance to drop, but just like the previous mount, it's likely you'll never even see the drop, let alone win it. As for how long the grind takes, I'll take 2 different guesses. The first figure is my general conservative estimate. If you're the only new player in your first run and subsequent runs also only have 1 new player, meaning 3 per clear, you're looking at 42 clear. A significant amount of clear-ready players saw that figure was too high and started to save themselves for the right party. That being a luck to duty incomplete, clear for 24 with everyone new and therefore the full loop. What they don't realise is they're actually making this grind harder on themselves and everyone else by doing so. Assuming for a second figure that all new players are funneled into clear for 24s, which I know is unlikely, but hear me out. Sure, they get their hairstyle the first run, but if they want the mount as well, they're looking at 76 total runs. Statics are also looking at 76 clears for the same reason. Don't want this to become reality? Don't join clear for 24s, don't join chaotic statics. One response had a fair bit to say about the rewards. My other point of dislike is the reward system. I understand what they were going for with adding bonuses to new people, but not only has that led to them all being funneled into duty incomplete parties where they're usually scammed out of a few materia by the pre-made party, 1 materia a clear for people reclearing quite frankly ridiculous for how expensive some of the items are. Not to mention the bonus system, which doesn't evenly give a bonus to all of the party members, despite everyone having helped with the clear. Another states that it is simply not substantially rewarding enough on repeat runs. As luck would have it, there is a way around the grind. The Demi-Materia 2 rewards aren't market prohibited. And you can probably already see where I'm going with this. At the time of writing, the mount goes for a little under 30 mil, and the hair for a little under 20 mil. I don't want to seem out of touch if I call these low prices without elaborating, but once prices stabilize, Gil is generally an accurate representation of the amount of time, energy, and sanity that was spent on the game. When you give someone gold coins, you're not giving them X value in gold, you're giving them X value in time spent working. These Gil values, now that they're stable, relative to the time, energy, and sanity that goes into progging the Chaotic Alliance raid, are low. If you only want the one copy for yourself and don't care to sell it, I can't in good faith recommend doing the content over just buying the reward. If you want to prog it for the sole purpose of selling the rewards, you're not getting your money's worth unless you farm multiple copies of each, which again will be nightmarish due to diminishing returns due to the new player bonus. If the Shroud of Darkness tempted you, just get your 50 clears for that, then be done with it. For this to be worth it, the prices have to go up now, before the amount of new players is offset by the reduction in rewards for all of them. Also there's a minion, but nobody cares about that. They basically, here, took the shitty chest system from Savage, but instead of making it one full loot clear per week, they made it one full loot clear ever. Astronomical blunder. Permission granted to lose your shit, by the way. But for those who can look past the reward structure, how is the experience of doing the fight? Despite having engaging and satisfying mechanics in a vacuum, the vast majority of players consider the fight to be overall far too punishing owing to its 24-person body check and general lack of recoverability. When a lot of players hear of body checks in this fight, they think of tower moves, but that isn't the full story. Most tower failures aren't because someone didn't know how to do the mechanic, but because they died due to the pair or spread mechanic immediately before. If that's multiple people, the tower explosions will surely guarantee a wipe. Well, if you can get fast raids out, you can avoid that, right? Unfortunately, healers placed on the inner platform cannot raise outer platform deaths without causing a wipe. This means that for strategies like the popular Aurelia raid plan and Codclaw plan, that position only one healer on each platform, not only are most of the healers inside healers that can't raid, but outside healers that bear a very heavy load. If they die, it's automatically a wipe unless that platform also has Red Mage or Summoner. But that's natural given that the platform split is 6-12-6, which is counterintuitive to the party setup being 3 parties of 8. Someone has to lose, and I think the blame for that falls on the devs rather than community strat makers. Another issue is present too, and that comes as a result of the arena design. Let's disregard the above and say that a mistake is made. 3 towers blow up. Now everyone is wondering, who can't do the mechanic, and why can't they? If your side looked good, you will just never know what killed you because you can't see that far out, and you have no agency in the situation. If you did see the person who made the mistake, well, we'll get to that. With regards to difficulty, I think a not insignificant amount of it stems from Mr. Elsmer's design, as he often makes his encounters more intense than necessary. They were looking to make something about equal to an EX trial, then they, by their own admission, overshot that and made a second turn savage, then just said, like, oops, deal with it. Nothing against the guy, of course, but given his track record, I personally believe that he shouldn't have been trusted with leading the design of the first fight in a new format. It's given a relatively bad, but also potentially inaccurate first impression of said format. Most of the responses didn't touch on the fight itself, but one had this split. On one hand, I think it's a fun fight, but on the other, I find it far too punishing for a 24-man raid that will mainly be done through PF for most. I started progging the fight a little when it dropped at 5 AM on the 24th, and cleared at around 6 PM on the 26th. Since then, I've only cleared a total of 9 times despite joining both clear and duty complete parties every day because of how punishing certain things can be. There's a few small things that add to this, but the two 24-man body checks are the most egregious of all. Ultimately, the fight is believed to be too difficult by designers' own admission, and should have been held back to tune closer to their vision rather than released as is. However, most people's grievances don't lie with the fight itself, but with PF's seeming inability to do it. Due to the number of players, but still the same amount of precision required, more wipes that happen are completely out of any given individual's control, bringing out more toxicity to the point that any admission of error can turn into a dog pile. As a result, people are even less likely than usual to speak up if they don't understand something. FF players have always sucked at communicating and being social, but now more so than ever, people would rather keep failing than asking questions. Additionally, pointing out someone else's error sets them up for a dog pile, which even when said in the kindest possible way runs the risk of you being reported for harassment for doing so, even if the enforcement of those reports is greatly exaggerated. The difficulty of this fight at its core has been argued by some people to be about an EX trial, so for those people, constant wipes are even more frustrating, as the way they see it, PF shouldn't be failing so miserably at what is not really that difficult of a fight. I gave the COD core plan a passing mention earlier, but the situation surrounding it is quite baffling. They had a pretty good strat at first that I was willing to defend, but they changed to different strats several times under the same name, which I find to be completely indefensible. Progged on an old version of COD core? Well, you're shit out of luck because there's now no documentation of the strat you actually like. Learn a different one or stop progging. Progging on the newest version of COD core? Well, any given player in your party might have progged on an older version and don't know there are changes, so expect to wipe a lot. Most of the responses, even those who spoke positively about the raid, expressed grievances with the people they were raiding with. Very fun experience. Just have to coordinate with 23 other people who have very shallow understandings of high-end raiding. It would be peak if people didn't PvP the tiles and method swap. As long as people know what they're doing, the DPS check isn't that egregious. It's comfortably clearable with a knowledgeable group. The raid itself is fun to do, the people are just the roughest part, honestly. I think that the quality of player being so low was due to Chaotic attempting to appeal to a more middle-of-the-road audience. For example, the kind of player who might draw the line at extreme, or maybe they attempt Savage but don't go on to clear a tier, while ultimately failing to be a piece of content that was accessible to that audience. If the initial difficulty target of EX was hit successfully, this would definitely have been a valuable entry method to high-end content as a whole, which is why we might be seeing a good amount more people in PF who maybe don't have other high-end experience. Also, while it should come as no surprise that attractive rewards make more people attempt the content, I'm going to specifically target the hairstyle here. Mounts being locked behind high-end content is nothing new, but hairstyles have historically always been obtainable through low-end content, which may have lured some people into a false sense of security with regards to chaotic difficulty. But either way, regardless of the reason, regardless of the issue, that naturally causes people to leave. So let's say one DPS in Alliance A leaves, which then leads everyone else to back out to replace them because while you can enter with 12 players, you can't clear with any less than a full 24. Due to the fight being item level synced, it's likely that it never gains the ability to be unsynced, meaning it will continue to need 24 players until the end of time. Anyway, now you're waiting in PF for one more DPS, but the PF listing is broken. The slot is locked to the last guy's job, so the party leader has to fix it. They open the PF window, fix the job, and right as they're about to relist, another person leaves, closing the PF window and resetting all progress made towards relisting. Now they have 2 slots to fix, so they fix it and another guy leaves before they can relist. And then another guy leaves before they can relist. Now all of Alliance D has non-consensually disbanded. And now you're alone with upwards of an hour of waiting to do if you want to actually attempt the content again. The game required us to gather 3 times as many clowns, but failed to give us the necessary framework to stop the entire circus from devolving into utter chaos. Chaotic falls into a sour spot of being generally too large for static, but too inflexible for PF. Now we know the problem, which this response brings all together fairly concisely. In a vacuum, Cloud of Darkness Chaotic is mechanically interesting and fun. However, I think body checks and 24-person content were a mistake, and the nature of PF makes it pretty miserable to actually do the fight. The rewards are theoretically good: 2 mounts, a hairstyle, current gear, but with the exception of the gear, all of those are way too grindy. Then there's the fact the fight is eye level synced, and there's a very good chance it never leaves the raid finder, meaning it will probably never become any easier to clear. 5 years from now, you'll still need 24 people to clear, and body checks will still be checking bodies. That is, to put it delicately, extremely fucking stupid. They're treating this like an ultimate when they should at most be treating it like an extreme, and frankly it should be even more lenient than that. Also, the mount drops should be guaranteed. Also, the you can enter with as few as 12 players bullshit is dumb and pointless, because if you do, you'll wipe at the latest to the first body check, assuming you don't get the pattern with line stacks that would definitely kill you. But knowing the problem is only half of the battle. Next, solutions. The high difficulty is a similar problem to Criterion, which I believe can be solved by moving future chaotics closer to the initial estimate of being entry to high-end G2. I do think that if there's going to be another, leave it in the oven for longer and don't be afraid to delay it if it needs further tuning. Do not release a chaotic in 7.3 if we see another. I'd want it to be 7.5 at the absolute earliest, maybe even 8.1. While the high raid size causes organizational issues, the thing that actually makes that bad is the lack of roster number flexibility. Savage is kind of already toeing the line, so having to gather even more people with no wiggle room is just not feasible. Large-scale raids are actually something that WoW does better by having boss damage and health scale based on the number of players in the instance between a certain size, 10 to 30 I believe. So if you have 24 players and someone needs to leave, that's fine, you don't actually have to back out. The other 23 of you can stay and the boss will retune then and there based on the fact you only have 23 people. We need this system for future chaotics, 12 to 24. Letting us enter to practice P1 with 12 people quite frankly is not enough. Let us clear with 12. There's no escaping the fact that it's miserable to pug, but at least this way it would be viable as like a friend group or FC thing, or joining multiple statics with ad hoc scheduling. Organization issues for PF was something I actually predicted and was not heard out on, so the resulting complaint and seeing people suggesting the same things I did have been very vindicating to read. I did kind of miss the mark with my proposal for a solution though. I proposed that the best way to play would be for a BA-style Discord. That exists now in the form of Radar, the server responsible for the messy Codcast situation, where a strategy was updated several times under the same name, which causes the strategy to be borderline unusable in a PF environment. As a result, Radar have somewhat of a bad reputation, and I would personally advise seeking an alternative should one come into existence. Even though having a Discord wouldn't improve the quality of player, it would help with the leaving and organization issues. It's pretty much like using Party Finder, but an organized Party Finder. Another potential solution to the leaving problem would also be to allow pre-made groups to request backfills as long as they're using a standard comp, so that someone using Raid Finder could join in progress and the group might not have to disband as a result. Then again, that would require NA to use the Raid Finder, at which point just pivot fully to the Raid Finder, at which point abandon the idea because PF is too deeply ingrained to even consider RF. Finally, as for the reward structure, I have multiple suggestions. One solution may be to simply shift Demi Materia 2 to the base value as opposed to new player bonus. If it were, for example, 25 at base and 1 per new player, I don't think people would be complaining as much. Under this proposal, the clear for 24 is still equally rewarding, but a run with less or no new players is also valuable. Another possible solution would be to swap an individual weekly loot-based lookout, similar to normal Alliance coin, but allow it to be bypassed by the presence of new players. That way, players aren't disincentivized from re-clearing. They can profitably clear with their static more than once, while also helping new players in PF without reducing the loot for them. Now, that is all for this video. Please remember to subscribe if you enjoyed it, and take the survey in the description if you'd like to see your piece as well. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again.